All right, I have a strange one today. So over the past 4 or 5 days, I'm guessing, I've been interacting with a gentleman on Discord who showed up in one of the servers I frequent, and he started out seeming a little hyperactive, a lot of ideas, kind of interesting. He was very excited about some of my stuff, very cordial, and then all of a sudden there was this strange 180 that occurred, and he began acting rather uncivilized. He started doing, I guess what I'll go ahead and say was cornering. I think he would agree with that term. Trying to use questions and pushing people to answer those questions in a way that's really, uncivilized in my opinion. Like, he wasn't trying to ask, well, why won't you answer this question? He wasn't trying to clarify. He wasn't trying to connect with the people. He was only trying to press them and say, well, why can't you answer that question? See, you're just blah, 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 blah. So it was infuriating, honestly. I can't quite reproduce or analyze the behavior. I'd probably have to watch it happen a few more times to really be able to do that. But I'll say this, there's another gentleman on the same Discord server that I've known for quite a while now, who does another type of, so I'm going to call these behaviors, although I didn't know that this is what I was going to call the first gentleman's behavior at the time, but I've decided that he at least is trying to, this is such a long-winded way to say this, I'm calling this beneficial incivility, just to give it a name. So individual number one was doing cornering. The individual number two, who I've known for longer, has often practiced what I will call circling, which is kind of going around and around, not necessarily hemming you in, but certainly making you feel as if somebody's got a stick and they're prodding you from every angle. Not in a very civil way, I will be plain about. Very short, abbreviated statements. Sometimes I'd have to ask him what he meant by his question. But I finally learned to not be annoyed by him because all his questions ended up being very helpful. I'll call him P. So P used circling. I thought he was useful. But J used cornering. And I'm still not very happy with his technique of cornering, even with his explanations, which he basically claims is an experiment, that he's trying to understand why people have strange reactions when, I'll call it cognitively loaded, when they're pushed into a corner and all their, there seem to be multiple prongs to the attack. It wasn't just logical, it was also pointing out their reactions, as well as, there was something else. It was a kind of, not dismissiveness, but a treating of people as if they are appearing to him as children or as uneducated or something like that. So there was a demeaning quality to it as well, or at least, I don't know if he would say that. I certainly felt that way when I saw him behaving this way. Some people dismissed him as a troll. Others only did that after a prolonged engagement with him. And finally, some stuck with it and have continued a conversation with him. And so that's my take on the content that I've been wading through over the past 3 or 4 days. I want to try to do a brief analysis of this technique of cornering that he used. Because I find it strange, but I also think I don't see the use in the process except for one of investigation, but I want to kind of reflect on why I think, to give my hypothesis, if you will, why I think this activity of cornering has the reactions it does. Because one thing I couldn't seem to get him to do was to tell me why what is the hypothesis behind why people behave this way when you corner them. I don't know if I just simply didn't answer or ask the question the right way to spark his responses, but at any rate, I didn't get a response from him over that. So I'm gonna say, so there's circling and there's cornering, and then there's knowing that someone is circling or cornering you, and then there's not knowing that that's what they're doing. And that also relates to what I'll call hard or soft circling or cornering. So known cornering would be deliberately, do I want to say that? So not just that it's known and unknown, but that the intent is deliberate, but is kind of innocent. It's not like they're trying to troll you, but that they are trying to get at something. There's something that they believe is very valuable, which is why they are doing this cornering or this circling tactic. That was just an important part. But so to go back to soft or hard cornering, or indeed circling, although I'm going to stop talking about circling now. Soft would be you're prepared and you know what's happening, and there is a respect given, and you're willing to back off and be okay. Is it too much, or am I triggering you too much? Okay, I'll back down. We'll get back to this later, or whatever. That's soft. Hard cornering is what he was participating in. It was very demanding, very insistent. He would redirect questions back to his question, so he wouldn't let you analyze his behavior. Or that's not quite accurate. I got him to admit that he was deliberately doing it, and this is the time lag thing, or the needing time to process, which hard cornering doesn't allow. I couldn't process the idea that someone would be deliberately doing that. It just blew my mind. You're deliberately being a troll. You're deliberately being, trying to corner me and push my emotional buttons and trigger my, my sense that you are a bad guy. So it was so strange I couldn't accept it, and I still have a hard time accepting it. I still have there's a part of my internal software that's still going, don't trust this guy. That thing's down to about 20%. When he first started acting like that, having this trolling behavior, it was up to like 90%. But because there was that 10%, because of the humility principle I believe in, I kept going with him, and I kept working with him and trying to understand, okay, what is going on? What does this guy think he's doing? I know this is probably not very interesting, so I'm sorry to you who have stuck with it this long and are going, what is the point of all this? This is just me trying to figure out what was going on. I'm still in conversation with this guy, and I told him I would make this video as an analysis of my experience of his process. Okay, I'm gonna stop right here before my kids see me. All right. So, hard cornering is fast. It's insistent. It damages your credibility. If you're the one doing the insistent, fast, hard cornering, you damage your credibility. That's what you do, because I'm sure there would be people out there who are so absolutely in control of themselves that they can still kind of, in a detached way, be interested in this strange person who has this strange hard cornering behavior, and just be like, that's interesting that you're acting that way. I don't know how to do that. I'm not good at that. Let me just go through soft cornering real quick, because I think it's easier to define. You allow people to have an emotional cool down. You allow them to process the results of, like, process the questions, process the internal feelings, and give them a chance to, like, cool down and figure out what's going on. That also, in effect, also gives you more credibility, because you're treating the person like a person and not like your science experiment. What are you doing, Branch? Sorry. You allow people time to recognize what you're doing. You tell them what you're doing. You give them time to reconsider their prejudice of you triggering them with the circling, with the cornering, rather. And another aspect of this is, if there are people around you, if you're the cornerer, it's not hard cornering if the people around you are saying, this is just a thing he does. That's what happened when the other gentleman P, was circling me. 2 or 3 other people in the forums was like, it's all right, he's like this, but it's good, it's all good. And I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable, but okay. With Jay, however, I had, he just popped out of nowhere and started acting trollish. So most of us were just like, okay. Anyway. So those are kind of my analysis of what it's like to be cornered, hard cornered. Is you don't have time to emotionally cool down, process what's going on. You may not even have a model of what is happening, and so you're just sitting there going, what? And if you're not able to come up with an analysis on at the drop of a hat, then you're kind of screwed. You just don't know what's going on until somebody helps you figure it out. So it's fast, it's insistent. There's no cool down. There's apparently no good justification other than this guy's just a bad dude. So he triggers all your internal, whether it's nature or nurture, all those things that trigger, oh, there's a bad guy in front of me. So, and then another way of looking at it, or from another dimension, like for me, who was being cornered, I just ran out of energy at some point, or I could have run out of energy. I did run out of energy at times and just walked away, because luckily I wasn't the target, so I was able to back away, take a deep breath, and figure things out. So there's a whole emotional energy level to it. Another issue is I was kind of bolting because I had other attractors, other things that was more interesting to me than figuring out what the deal was with this dude. Now, eventually I came back around and talked to him, but I was just like, I've got more interesting things to do than have this guy corner me. Lack of a good model, I mentioned that. I didn't have a model. I finally came up with one slowly after talking to him over and over and over again. I'm still, like I said, I'm at 20% locked into a bad judgment of this guy's character, because I have no respect for that behavior, even knowing as I do that he's deliberately creating an experiment to try to understand why people react the way they do. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to say, dude, you've given him no emotional time to cool down. You've triggered all their bad guy sensors. Those are the two big ways I can speak about it. I've broken it down into 6 different things, though. All right. No, not right now. I'm recording. Other causal factors. Preload tribal software. I talked about that. Incivility is very often a justified reason to disengage and not take seriously, to give no further energy through, though may be socially locked for a while anyway. Yeah, so this is talking about how somebody can get locked in to deciding that you're just nuts. Yeah. Potential positives. I'll try to do this. I don't know if it'll work. I don't have much to say positive about it, other than I guess it's interesting that he's trying to do this study. I hope he benefits from it. I hope this response to his process helps him. it might help. I mean, having had the experience, I guess now I have a category of the benevolent, incivil person. I didn't have that. I didn't have much of a category for that before, and I have a much more defined category of that now. So I guess thanks for that. Made me. It really hasn't increased my self-awareness, so I suppose it could. Somebody. I say that because I already know that I'm easily triggered by stuff like this, by people being incivil. So that's all I got, really. That's what I think of cornering, hard cornering or soft cornering. I made up the names just to give it a name. And I will be interested to see if he has anything to say about that. Thank you for watching, if you did.